Okay. Hi, everybody. Doing a 1 day late fireside chat podcast for you. Happy to be here. It's May 18th, 2020. I'm down here in my office where I've happily been ensconced for a while. So I have a couple of interesting things to talk about, and then I'll move on to my main theme for the week. Let's see, where do I want to actually start? I guess I'll start with some interesting news. I don't know how to confirm this yet. This is very, very fresh. A possible, let's say, apparent or possible crash of an unknown, unidentified object in Brazil near the city of Rio de Janeiro. I was trying to get the date. I believe it's May 13th, May 12th, going into the 13th, I believe. There was one report on Reddit where the guy said May 5th, but it was written, this whole thing was written on May 13th, and it was reported on May 13th. So it's possible that it was May 5th, and then no one really knew about it until it got reported. So I'm still trying to figure this out. I have not done a deep analysis of this, but I have read a couple of pieces about it, including some from Portuguese translated into English. So I'm doing my best at this time. But there's some video on YouTube. It's interesting. It's not conclusive of aliens, but it's interesting. It does appear something bizarre was going on. So around midnight, on some night during this month of May, there were a large number of people actually noticed at least two distinct aerial objects, lit objects in the night sky moving definitely, and you could even see this a bit from the video, but everyone was talking that moving in a way that was not in aerodynamic way. So apparently it was hovering, apparently it was moving. And at some point, and I could not see this in any video, one or more of the objects apparently fell or crashed. The news reports indicated that a loud crash was heard, some kind of explosion, some kind of loud sound. So you've got two bright, basically dots flying at various speeds. It wasn't a uniform speed, one and then another. So there were two of these objects. The town is spelled M-A-G-E. In English, you might say Mage. I'm sure it's pronounced very differently. Portuguese is one of those, for me, a very difficult language to master the pronunciation. Mage, don't know. But near Rio de Janeiro. So one Reddit post said that residents of this town were shocked when the object started to descend at a high speed as if it was falling from the sky. And after a few seconds, they heard a crash. And they said not long after this, it started trending on Brazilian Twitter. And then a variety of videos and witness accounts of this started, so that it became such a buzz that the local media, TV news, they had to report it. And you hear this kind of thing. This happens every so often, where there's enough of a local stir about an event that local media will report it. That happened almost 20 years ago in Washington, D.C., with a couple of F-16s chasing multiple UFOs in the D.C. skies, not far from the Capitol, not long after 9/11. So in any case, a similar thing happened here. Let me see. I've got a couple of other notes on this. Oh, yes. Residents claimed that the Brazilian military sealed off the area that is ground zero where the crash apparently occurred, and no one was able to come near. Also, there were 5 Brazilian military helicopters flying over the area, very loud. This woke people up in the morning. Apparently, that's considered highly unusual to have that many choppers in this area. So that's basically it. There doesn't seem to have been any statement from the Army. There doesn't seem to be any statement from local political authorities of any sort. And the official word, last time I got any information on this, is that the official political people, whoever these people were, said there's no sign of any accident in the area, nothing wrong happening here. So denial seems to be the rule. Something interesting happened. Something interesting. You've got, let's just say what we can be confident about. 2 highly unusual objects. Now, one thing you can say is that even though like the video that you can see on YouTube is cell phone video, I'll link to what's available, what I've seen. Cell phone video, if it's not a very bright object in the night sky, you're going to have a hard time capturing it. But this cell phone camera absolutely captured 2 very, very bright, distinct objects in the night sky. So whatever these things were, they were clearly bright. The video that I saw, the guy holding the camera was moving himself all over the place. So it's in picture, it's out of the picture. I'll look to see if there's better video available. Even so, you can definitely tell that there's something unusual in the sky that appears, according to all of the people watching it, to move in highly unusual ways. And one or both of them came down. That's really all that I know. And that the military appears to have sealed off the area. So yeah, that's interesting. And it's particularly interesting because there aren't a large number of confirmed UFO crash retrievals that I know about in the 21st century. I have little doubt that they have continued to occur, or at least I can assume that they continue to occur, but we don't know about them. So this is one, and I would sure love for some active Brazilian researchers to get onto it. I'm very friendly with AJ Gevard, who is a leading Brazilian UFO researcher, and I think I'll write to AJ and ask him if he can find anything else about it. Maybe I can interview him. It would be definitely interesting to learn more about it. One of the YouTube videos, I'll link to it below. I did a translation out of the Portuguese, and it just says, residents of the state of Rio de Janeiro were amazed by the lights in the sky and recorded the alleged UFOs on videos on social networks. Despite this, there are no official records of the incident in the area, according to various sources. Top comment had 73 replies. Someone tell them that we're in quarantine. We cannot receive visitors. So a little bit of humor there. That particular video is approaching 1 million views. It has over 900,000 views when I looked at it. So, and it's not even like an amazing video. It's an interesting video, but it clearly is capturing something very unusual. So yes, a story worth watching. Oh yeah, I have a little bit that I've translated from another Brazilian website. I'll just read this little bit and I'll link to it. The alleged appearance of a UFO in Mahe, Rio de Janeiro is one of the most talked about subjects this Wednesday morning, May 13th on Twitter. Netizens have shared videos of lights shining in the sky. Some residents of Ilha do Governador, that's a region I assume, recorded what happened and commented on what they saw. What is it, man? Guys, I'm on Ilha do Governador at the height of Nossa Senhora das Graças, and there's a light on the horizon which has been standing still for over 10 minutes. And this in the sky, a lot of lights. Lights flash, dim, increase, and keep moving as if it were coming from the other side. There's a red one now, narrates one person. And it's true. At the end of one of the videos that I saw, it shifts to this very, very seemingly steady red light in the sky. There's these white lights, and then you get this red light. What that is, well, I do not know. The article just goes on. During the recording, one of the people comes to consider the possibility of it being a balloon. However, the author of the video replies, balloons do not move at that speed. And I think there's a mistranslation. Probably it's creepy, says another person in the background. Aeronautics informed UOI that it does not have records of falling objects at the site. I assume aeronautics is an official government place, nor of isolation of areas in this region. So they're not even admitting to the military coming in, apparently. fire department and military police of the area do not record any occurrences. And from what I thought I knew about Brazil's fire department, that is a national organization. So it's like a federal agency, unlike in the United States. So they're denying anything. Interesting. The plot thickens. So that's what I have on the Brazilian event. We will definitely keep our finger on that pulse. That's a very interesting story. I think we can all agree, particularly so. Let's just make this one more statement. For me personally, I've developed a reignited interest in crash retrieval cases, in particular, because I think if we can demonstrate, the reality of genuine retrievals of genuine UFOs, truly anomalous craft, then we can move beyond the boring and ridiculous platitudes that we have been hearing for the last few years about, well, we don't know what these UAP are. And I really think it's important that we do that for our society, and just so that we do not ourselves get dumbed down in the process and forget what we know is true, which is that it's a heck of a lot more than we don't know what these things are. Wow, they could be Russian, they could be Chinese. Please stop insulting us. There's a long history of very dramatic military encounters with these objects that go back for an entire human lifetime. And it's not just some recent mystery that has started all of the last, couple of decades. Which brings me to a very interesting interview given by someone named Mr. X. It's very mysterious. Over at Project Unity. I've got the link below. Do check it out. He actually gave a second live stream today, which I have not yet heard, but I'm linking it below. The first one that he gave is I really like this. I like this person. It's a short little statement that he gives to Project Unity about TTSA and their collective duty to talk openly about the black budget programs that are featured in documents like the Thomas R. Wilson notes by Dr. Eric Davis, which, of course, we've covered a lot here on this site. I have talked a lot about. And it was very good to hear a very forthright statement. I've been tough on them and I've been easy on them, TTSA at the same time. I think if you followed me, you know what I mean. I've been easy on them in the sense that I'm very glad and have always been glad that they are saying and doing the things that they have done, to the extent that they have been able to jumpstart a conversation on the UFO subject that no one else has been able to do in the public domain. And that's a fact. I haven't been able to do it. Stephen Greer hasn't been able to do it. Linda Moulton Howe hasn't been able to do it. MUFON hasn't been able to do it. Stanton Friedman wasn't able to do it. Donald Kehoe back in the olden times wasn't able to do it. The Lorenzo DiApro couldn't do it. No one was able to do it. And TTSA, fronted by Tom DeLonge, including his bad interview on Joe Rogan, doesn't matter. They have been able to get a public conversation going on UAP that no one else has been able to do. And they were able to get released 3 genuine U.S. Navy videos of UFOs. I mean, come on. People like to hate on them, but they did something no one else could do. So for my part, I am very grateful for that effort and for a number of other statements that they have made, and continuing their continued ability from time to time to get some mainstream press on the subject of UAP and UFOs and their prodding of the Navy. So I've talked about this a lot. I don't need to go into this right now, but I've also been critical of them openly as well, and really for the same reason that this Mr. X gave over at for his interview with Unity, which is that these guys clearly know a lot more than what they're willing to say. Now, when I think about all the reasons why they're not going farther, it's not hard at all to understand why they go only so far. All right, because I've talked with a couple of people there, right? they know full well this is a very sensitive political situation. My phone is ringing, and I am not going to take this. I thought my ringer was off. I thought my sound was off. Apologies. Where was I? So yes, they are trying, in their opinion, to navigate their way through a genuinely treacherous path. It's not easy. You've got, I've said this many times, you've got a media that for generations just doesn't care about this subject. You've got a political establishment which they are trying to nudge, which is terrified of discussing this subject. All right, absolute terror. And there's an academic community which they, I think, want to engage as well, which is institutionally, hostile to the entire subject of UFOs. So they've got all of these obstacles to overcome. And if they were to start coming out saying, yes, we know this, and we know that there are these black budget programs, and like, the fact is, not everyone wants to be a martyr. And we, sitting comfortably where we are, can complain about them not wanting to be martyrs. Why don't you fall on your sword for humanity? Yes, I actually would like for them to do that, but I'm not them either. So it's not really hard to see why they're going through the way that they are. This is their opinion. I have personally, to a few of the people in there, tried my best to cajole, persuade, to try to persuade them about their legacy and things like this. And it's quite possible that those have not fallen on deaf ears. It's quite possible that some or several of them have listened. I don't know. No one has said to me, oh, yes, Richard, absolutely. I'm going to do what you say. They haven't done that. So, but anyway, Mr. X over at Project Unity was essentially saying that, and I agree with him. So I was glad that he's making that statement. I don't know if that's going to reach them, but I do think it was a good statement. I guess I know who this individual is. I think it would be foolish if I said that I didn't, but I am respecting this individual's privacy. There was one comment below, kind of snarky, in the YouTube saying, well, you have no credibility. You're talking about them not coming forward, and you're being anonymous. Let's see who you are so that we can see whether you know what you're talking about. And I thought that was a very off-topic statement and not really relevant. I think all too often when we have these conversations, people are fixated on what are your qualifications to say this, rather than, do you make a good point? Are you correct? What is the substance of what you're saying? To me, I look at this, in my view, it's as a very postmodern type of perspective, trying to get around the substance rather than dealing with the substance itself. And I have an inherent dislike of that type of attitude. It doesn't mean that your credentials and your background aren't important, but in my view, always that's secondary. And the main thing always is, what is your substance? What do you have to say? What do you bring into the table? You've got something interesting and relevant to say. And if so, then say it. That's my attitude. Okay, so let me move on. I guess the other bit of news that I'll talk about briefly before I move on to my main theme is the online live conference that is now official. We've put that out there for you guys and now for the general public, and that is the executive briefing with Richard Dolan. That's me. And I'm doing that on June 6th. As one of our members mentioned, prestidigitate, that is D-Day. Indeed it is. That is June 6th, 1944 was the date, of course, that the American and Allied troops had their mass invasion on the beaches of Normandy in the Second World War. Our June 6th, not quite as dramatic, but it's a big day, and it'll be about 9 hours. It will go from 1 p.m. Eastern, or that's 10 a.m. Pacific, and it will go until about 10 p.m. Eastern or 7 p.m. Pacific time. So if you're not in those time zones, check your phone for your time. You know your time zone by now. So that's today. One thing I will just say is if for those who are interested in it but will not be available that day, for anyone who does purchase a ticket, the conference will be available to you for the next 30 days after. So for anyone who's purchased a link to that, that's good until through the first week of July. After that, I do not intend to have this on YouTube. This is an exclusive briefing conference. Now, I mean, I'm just going to say here, realistically, over the course of this year, it is very likely that the themes that I talk about at this event, I'm sure, are going to leach out into my talks with you, because how could it possibly be that I won't want to do that? So, I mean, look, here's the thing. I'm not trying to strong arm anyone into doing this, and I am not trying to do that to you. So for those of you who are interested, if you want to support this event, by all means, I would be grateful for your support. And I can also tell you, I've been working very, very diligently researching the themes that I will be talking about. And I did talk about this in my podcast last week, so I won't go over that whole thing again. And of course, there's a post on our site. You can read all about it. But I'm fascinated by the topic. So the one is simply how COVID-19 is hastening humanity's lurch toward what I have now come to see as our fourth stage of, I guess, evolution or development, the transhumanist stage. I think, it's very briefly, it's something that we have been moving toward. It's something that I have been very interested in for a while. But now, looking at the response to this pandemic, it has definitely a number of things have been going on that are speeding the process up, and I will be talking about a lot of that. And then the other thing, which I'm even more excited about, frankly, is my breakdown of the alien agendas and alien typologies. And in fact, I'm about to talk a little bit about that even here in a moment. So I guess my point is, if you don't attend the lectures, it's fine. Money is tight for a lot of folks out there. Believe me, I get it. So if it's something that you don't feel you can do, I'm grateful for your support here on this site. I am grateful that anyone thinks that it's worth their time to drop $7 a month or $75 a year to be a member of this site. I hope you realize not a day goes by when I am not grateful for your support and not mindful of my responsibility to fulfill my end of that bargain by providing you with the very best content that I can as often as I can. And real content, not fluff, not nonsense, not pretend inside stories, but really the things that I know that I can do best, which on a good day, I can siphon out some good information and provide some decent analysis and run that by you. That's really that's the thing that I can do. And I'm not ever going to pretend that I'm anything other than that. So I will just do my best at that and hope that that's something that you feel is worth it for you. And if you do, then believe me, I do not take that responsibility lightly. Not ever. Not ever. So with that, I'm just saying, please do not feel like I am trying to pressure anybody into this conference. Having said that, I'm very pleased with the response. I opened for 24 hours, I made it only available for you guys, for members of Richard Olin members. And I was blown away by the response. Blown away. We sold over 80 tickets in the first day. I was just like, my God, are you kidding me? And we've just, we have a public newsletter, which has thousands of subscribers at this point, and we just sent that out. And their response has not been as intense as the response of you guys, which I knew that would be the case. Like, I knew the people who really care are right here. I made my prediction to Tracy, and but sales are good. and it's going to be a great event. And I'd lie if I said I wasn't nervous about it. I'm a little nervous, but I think it will go well. The big thing is I'm just like the technology. We've had a couple of dry runs. It seems to work flawlessly. I'm very happy with it. I believe in this. And the thing about the interface, by the way, like if you're someone who signed up for it, you're going to find it's actually a really cool interface. So what it will do, which I don't think I mentioned previously, is it's not just an interactive chat feature, which it is. And it'll have like chat moderators and all of that, and no bad behavior and all of that. But the people running the chat moderator will actually be able to take instant polls. Like you'll be able to vote on topics instantly, and I will see that live. They're going to bring that to my attention. It's going to be weird because I'm like, when I give a lecture, I get into a freaky zone. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I get into a zone where I am ultra, ultra, ultra focused on what I'm trying to convey. So it might be a challenge for me to do this, but I'm going to try. So I think it'll be a fun and good experience. I'm looking forward to it. And I think that it will be a fun experience for those people who decide to attend. And if you don't attend, if you're a member here, I won't be putting this on YouTube. That I've decided not. Like if anyone is going to pay money for this, it's not fair to them for me just to throw it out on YouTube. So I'm not going to do that. But the truth is, like the information that I've got in various forms, I'm sure over the course of this year are going to come out. And that's only fair as well. So anyway, that's what we've got. So if you're interested, the banner, the link's at the top of this website. You really can't miss it. You can click that and it'll go to the post, and that'll be the case till we go live on June 6th. And if it does go well, if I'm happy with the result, I'll do more. I've already got an idea for a really fantastic guest. I want to see if I can get that person to do it. And there you go. Oh, and one more thing before I get into my theme, which is I'm calling incorporating weirdness. I think I'm calling it that. The interview I just did, I talked about this with Catherine Austin Fitz. I've transcribed bullet points of the first half. I've not yet done the second half. Please give me another day or two. I will listen to it and I will do the bullet points for the rest of it. I'll just tell you, it was a heck of an interview. Honestly, I've had a lot of time with Catherine. I'm very, very lucky. She's an extraordinary individual, and it's amazing for me that I get to talk to her at all. But this one in particular was maybe my favorite one. I mean, she called me to interview me, but the fact was it was a 50-50 conversation, very likely. She did a lot of talking, and I wanted her to talk, and she did. I was actually trying, as we were going into it, very carefully, casually, to not turn it around and be her interviewer, but certainly to engage her as much as she was trying to engage me. And I feel like that was a fantastic conversation. And it's what we normally do when we chat. Like we just go back and forth. We don't do formal interviews very much, I've noticed. The things that we talked about were fascinating and important, relevant for everyone. So, but I've just, as a courtesy to her, it's really not fair for me to make that interview available to anyone before she does that for her site. And she, I guess, needs another week or so before it's ready. I don't know her system, but I'm just letting her do that. And the day she releases it for her site, I'm releasing it here for this site so that you can listen to it. We have our own recording. I don't even need to ask her for her. She's fine. We worked this all out. So she knows I recorded it. The sound quality of our recording is superb. It sounds like you're right there with us. Some of the recordings I do of other people, it sounds like they're, calling in from another planet, not this one. So she sounds great. My voice is very clear. So I'm very happy with that. It's audio only. It's not video. So just to let you know. Okay, let me move on. So I was sitting down earlier today thinking, what is actually on my mind? What do I really want to talk with you about? And it's this idea of incorporating weirdness. And when you really think about it, you ever realize, like, all of us, you, me, most of us anyway, it's like we live in two worlds. So we live in a normal world. We wake up, we maybe listen to the radio, or not radio, or maybe your favorite YouTube channel, or whatever you do. And we deal with ordinary reality because we have to. If you want to survive, that's what we do. And also, for the most part, I think that is how we are biologically, wired. We have to function in the world. And so we have to deal with this, and we have ordinary daily waking reality. But we know about the weird world. All of us do. And some of us and some of you live in that weird world, at least from time to time. Usually, I think that when we do, it's a fleeting example. And by that, I simply mean those of us, those of you particularly, who have had experiences with other intelligences, those of you who have had bizarre UFO sightings. Like, we've all probably had some of that. And some of us have had it more than others, right? Someone like Chris Bledsoe, who I did 4 interviews with. He is a guy who lives it. And by the way, I have such a strong belief in Chris now. I'll just mention, earlier today, I was speaking with one of the folks on our site who also got to know Chris Bledsoe quite well. And I have not yet visited Chris's place in North Carolina. We were planning to do so, and then COVID happened and all the craziness. But I plan to do it. But Chris Bledsoe and Tracy and I have a very, very close mutual friend, and actually several mutual friends. I don't need any more vetting of Chris Bledsoe from my perspective. There's been enough to prove to me that this man is for real. And he has lived in such a state of strangeness. But the thing is, like, it's so strange. Like, I'm not going to hide this fact. I told Chris myself. It's like there's a part of me that keeps wondering, can this be real? Like, are you telling me the truth, man? And I keep wanting to go back to that position, but I can't honestly do it. Because there is a point where an investigator you have to rely on logic and the data, of course. But there's a point where your gut has to speak to you. And I'm no different. And I will tell you, every fiber in my being, every fiber inside me tells me that guy is for real. And on a personal level, I have a genuine affection for him. And I genuinely really like him, and I believe him. I believe him deeply. So that's where I'm coming from on a personal level. But yet, that alone wouldn't be enough. It's the fact that every single person that I know of who has gone there has come back saying this man is totally for real. And not only that, but they have taken, as Travis Taylor was mentioning in one of the episodes of the Skinwalker show, they come back from Skinwalker with hitchhikers, and people come back from Chris Bledsoe's place with hitchhikers. That is paranormal experiences. And it's at a point where I'm just not going to deny it anymore. Like, I can't, not that I was denying it, but when it's there in your face, it's just like with the rest of the UFO phenomenon. You can either ignore it, you can pretend that it doesn't exist, or you can look at the data. And that's the hard thing to do, is to look at the evidence. And if you look at the evidence, well, then it's hard, because you are forcing yourself to examine your most fundamental worldviews, right? That's what you're doing. And I don't care what anyone says. No one wants to do that. I did not want to do it when I first jumped into UFOs 25 years ago. I did not want to do it. But something at that time compelled me to do so. And so I did. And now you just go further and further down the road. And so now the weirdness is beyond just UFOs. I mean, if it were only, as Valet famously said this, if UFOs were only as simple as extraterrestrials, how boring that would be. And he's got a point. There's a point. I'm going to explain a little bit where I think I'm going here. There are UFOs, and then there's the weird world. And I don't think that they are all exactly the same all the time. All right. So, what do I mean? There are cases of people seeing objects in the sky that do not behave in any way that we know how to explain. So we call those UFOs. Fine. There are cases of people who encounter apparent beings that are not human, that will just, for lack of a better word, seem alien to us. And sometimes they report that they've been abducted. Sometimes they report that they've just had an interesting kind of contact with them. Sometimes they'll report that they've had some kind of mental connection, all of that. But then there are cases that are bizarre beyond that. This weirdness. One book that really, really affected me. By other authors, I've published several really, really interesting books. But the one that really, I guess, got into my head the most was probably The Messengers by Mike Cleland, which I have right here. The Owl book. That's Mike. I really like Mike a lot. And this book, I mean, I knew Mike long before he was a well-known author. Met him at a conference a couple of times, and he's always a super nice and humble man. But there's a lot of brain power going on in that man as well. He's had a lifetime of strange experiences, UFO sightings, but more than that. But what he ended up doing in this book is write about essentially synchronicities. Bizarre synchronicities, that is, meaningful coincidences. And in his case, coincidences that are meaningful specifically and only to the person to which this thing, whatever it is happening. And so it was hard for him to describe this in an introduction. I ended up writing the foreword, which I tried very much to describe this phenomenon, because it is complex. But it's as if there's an intelligence that is above and beyond us that can think way, way, way ahead of us in every way, that is kind of, you could say, managing our reality, or at least at times appears to be managing our reality, and leaving little hints to us from time to time for those of us who are perceptive enough to look for the hints and to see the hints. And it's a worldview that goes counter to everything that science has said to us for the past 300 plus years. The version of the world as expounded by geniuses like Sir Isaac Newton don't account for that type of thing. Although Newton himself personally, I think, did believe in things like that, but Newton's physics doesn't leave any openings for it. In Newtonian physics, the universe just has certain immutable laws, and there's no intelligence behind the things that operate in this universe. It's just physical laws. And our science, I think, for the most part to this day, professional science is dominated still by that thought. Even though for the past century, we've had a lot of weird science developing, of course, quantum physics and relativity and beyond that, string theory and who knows what else. So I guess, so let me just bring this all back. I think that there is, I call it a meta-intelligence. It's an intelligence that's above us. And I simply hypothesize that it exists. And I don't see that as the same as aliens. I don't think that it is. I could be wrong, but it seems way beyond even what I would expect from an alien species, a level of understanding. Now, you might be able to square the circle. You might be able to see them as the same if you hypothesize, and this is totally realistic too, a hyper advanced, super advanced artificial intelligence that has become essentially godlike, to use Ray Kurzweil's phrase, and is so advanced that it has been able to kind of stand above our civilization and every now and then leave little hints of its existence. Maybe. That's a possibility. It really makes me think that ancient people might have understood certain elements of our reality much, much better than we do today. I mean, ancient people talked all the time about the gods. The gods. And really, when you think about it, probably all of us growing up when we learned about ancient mythology received a very, very poor education on that. I don't think we really truly were taught properly about what those ancient beliefs and myths were about. You know, we would say, well, why does Zeus have to have so many girlfriends? You know, why are they fighting all the time? You know, I think that the ancient belief in multiple gods had a real wisdom to it, in the sense of there's an implicit recognition that there are forces in this world, in the natural world, that were well beyond the ability of human beings to control. There were powers that, and they were not always nice powers, because after all, things can happen and can destroy your society or wreck your crops or cause all kinds of mayhem. And what I'm saying is that ancient people recognized implicitly and explicitly that they were not running the world. They were not the top species on this planet. There were others. Now, were those ancient gods literal representations of aliens, or were they metaphoric expressions of the ancient people's understanding of the natural forces of the world? We can entertain both of those ideas. I think they both have some merit to them. But the fundamental idea is that we are not in control. You know, there's a great line from Shakespeare's play King Lear. I love Shakespeare. We'll do a Shakespeare chat one day, but there's one line at the end of King Lear by a character named Gloucester. And his life, everything has gone bad for him at the end. He's blind, and he says to someone else, "As flies to wanton boys are we to the gods. They kill us for their sport." It's a bleak line. It's brilliantly, perfectly Shakespearean. It's harsh, right? We're like flies to boys who just are having fun to kill us because they like it. As flies to wanton boys are we to the gods. They kill us for their sport. I don't think that that's the only way we need to look at the world. So don't necessarily incorporate that as your fundamental worldview. But it's worth understanding, right? There is a truth to it. There's a truth to it. There's a truth to a lot of these ways of looking at things, and that's just one. So are we in control? And so this idea of this other intelligence, it's not always malicious. If you really go by all the data that we're getting, it's a real intelligence, and it is interactive at times. like when Chris Bledsoe's talking to it, like sometimes it appears when people do the CE5 protocols, whether it's Stephen Greer or someone who's just following that system. I don't personally believe that every instance of success is an actual success, but I think I am willing to believe that there are some successes. I've talked to too many people who've done it. I have never had success with it. Never. I've tried a few times, not maybe as many as others, but I've tried a few times. But I know people have succeeded, and I am willing to accept that. So I think that there is an interactive intelligence, and it's not even usually, it's usually not malevolent. I think it often appears to be good, or at least not harmful. I still don't know the rules by which it plays the game. Like, I don't know that if I follow certain protocols that it's always going to respond in a certain way. From what I'm able to understand, it does what it does. There is a trickster element to it. If you look at places like the Skinwalker Ranch, if that's a genuine phenomenon, and I know there are some doubters, but I do think it's entirely possible that that's a genuine phenomenon, not just a military thing. That there is a trickster phenomenon. Sometimes it responds to our consciousness. Sometimes it doesn't, because I can tell you personally, it doesn't always seem to respond to my consciousness if I'm asking it. And then we can also ask, why does it interact with us at all? Is there a reason that it will do that? It's possible that, the fact that it seems to interact with us at all, I would say should tell us that, well, it cares. I've been loath to use this word, and that doesn't mean that it cares in an emotional, like loving way, but there might be something about it where, to this intelligence interacting with us, apparently is important enough that it makes a bit of a display, because some of these seem to be public displays. Seems to be. And of course, when people are having, well, now we have to distinguish between that type of interaction or an actual ET encounter. And I guess you can see, like, I'm speculating that they are different. And I'm admitting here that it is probably sometimes difficult always to distinguish, like, is it this or is it that? What I suspect is that the actual ET presence, very well over our history, might have just been a sporadic thing and an occasional thing, compared with this type of trickster meta intelligence, which I suspect has probably been with us all along. I think that's very possible. Do you ever wonder, like, if this intelligence, which it seems it's many, 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 many steps ahead of us, it seems to me that it is above all of the other intelligences that are on this planet, including the genuine UFO phenomenon, that this trickster higher intelligence is even beyond any kind of ET presence, whether, the insectoids and the greys and the reptilians or whatever. To me, from what I'm currently thinking, I think this, is that the insectilians, the greys, the reptoids, the humans, they're operating at a more advanced level in certain ways than we are, probably, but they're still basically at our level of operation. I don't see them as at this extra level, the level of operation that's in a book like this. What's in here seems to be beyond, even though a lot of the meta intelligence seems to be connected with UFO sightings, but it's also connected with other things like death and other profound experiences that human beings go through. It's connected to more than just UFOs. So that's what makes me think that it's like a higher commentary, a higher level of interactivity. I'd like to know what you think about this. So, yeah, is it a benign intelligence? Is it a trickster intelligence? And by trickster, I don't necessarily mean that it's out to screw with us, although sometimes I think that may be possible, yes. But I think it's beyond us ordinarily in a way that we, basically struggle to understand. So I think it's real, and I think there's a good chance that it is distinct from the visitation or the presence of possible or apparent extraterrestrials. I think they're not the same. And I think that the ET presence is very possibly recent at least in large amounts. And I think it is very, very likely that what had probably been a long-standing low-level monitoring of our species picked up dramatically in the 20th century for obvious reasons, that we were developing technologically in ways that were going to get their attention, with radio, with weaponry, with the ability to go out into space ourselves, and all of these other reasons. So I think in the 20th century, any monitoring process that was underway would very possibly be ramped up over our own development. And I think that's it. Now, I have a lot, there's more to what I'm thinking about this, but it's probably a good place to wind it down. So you can see it's frustrating in a way, but it's actually more fun than frustrating, which is to figure this mystery out. Like, this is a tough mystery. I spent a lot of years, like you, thinking about this mystery, at least like many of you, thinking about it and wondering about it. And, I haven't figured it all out. There's lots of gaps of understanding, and there's still a road that I personally need to travel. But what I enjoy doing is asking these types of questions and hypothesizing about the different kinds of permutations that might exist with this phenomenon. For me, it's very important that I hypothesize based on data that's reliable, at least to the best of what I can gather. So that's what I'll keep doing, and hopefully we can all do that together. I would love to know your thoughts on this idea of distinguishing probable ETs from other elements of the strange. I mean, I haven't even gotten into things like ghosts. I told all of you a little over a year ago, when my dad passed away, what happened to the lights in my house. The minute that he died, 150 miles away from me, I think it was the very moment he died, when two newly installed little ceiling lights that I have in my living room on a dimmer setting flashed bright, dim, bright, dim, bright, dim, bright, dim for about a minute, until I got up. Tracy was watching the whole thing. I got up from the couch thinking, what's wrong with these lights? I'm watching them do this crazy flashing, rapid flashing, but distinct. Not so fast. It was like this, like that speed, right? Like to the brightest to the dimmest, until I turned it on and off a few times to stop it, just because I didn't know what else to do. 15 minutes later, my sister called me to tell me that our dad had died. Now, good grief, man. How do I make sense of that? For those of us who are not strict 19th century materialists who don't believe in any kind of transcendental reality. Like, I mean, for any of us who believe in some level of non-physical reality, we're all inclined to say, yeah, that could very well be an intelligence connected with my dad. Okay, sure. How that works, that's a whole other thing. Somehow, his consciousness, it's not like his consciousness flew at greater than the speed of light for 150 miles to get into my wiring in my living room to get my attention. Or was it? Like, how does that work? Well, I don't know the answer to that question, but it's another little sign that we are living in a world that we don't really understand how it works. We know that there are certain things that are true. Yeah. We know UFOs are real. We know that there are certain bizarre things that happen in our world. Yes, all of that. But we don't really know why. We don't get the physics of it. Or at least I don't get the physics of it. And I'll tell you, like, I really want to understand that. And I really want to get a better handle on who and what these other beings are and what they are doing here. And I'm going to be coming back to that again and again and again and again. That's going to be one of my main themes on June 6th when I do this live event. And it'll undoubtedly be something that I follow up with in a variety of other forms. I may do a little booklet on it. I may, who knows? I'll do things on it. It's an important thought. And I just tell you, like, I'm excited about doing it. I'm excited about delving into these issues, and I hope that you're excited about it. I mean, thinking about this, life throws all of these crappy things at us. We're in this messed up pandemic. And, in the early stages of it, I, like a lot of other people, I was very supportive of the idea of like flattening the curve and all of that. Like I absolutely did. I'm at the point now where I'm seeing there's a lot of negativity coming out of these lockdowns. And I think, again, I would hate to be the one to make the decision on this because it's a huge responsibility. But we're at a point where we really have to look at the cure being probably worse than the disease at this point. So we've got to do something about it. But what's happening is like so many things that are just absolutely depressing. And it's easy for us, for all of us, for me, for everyone else, to get really down about a lot of the things that are happening in this world around us and in our lives personally, I have no doubt. So for me, I try to remind myself of the absolutely amazing, fascinating, fun things that we can explore. When I say fun, I mean rewarding fun. I mean things that genuinely make life worth living. I ask myself pretty often, like, what are the things that make my life worth living? And one is having someone who loves me and people that I can love. Absolutely. And another is having like my books around me and all these ideas that I get to live with and the ability to explore ideas about the nature of this reality. I love it. And it does. It's one of those things that makes life worth living. So for me, I call that fun. And as awful sometimes as things in this world seem, like, I can always come back to the fact that I personally get to study things that fascinate me. And you can too. Like, that's the thing that we can do. And it beats the alternative, which is not doing those things. So I come back to that. That I think is one reason why, like a lot of people will ask me, why do you stay optimistic when you think of all these horrible things that are going on? And it's true. Like I've had people tell me this for years and years. And I do fundamentally stay upbeat. And I haven't always known why, but I think one important reason is that I always find something to be engaged with, something that keeps me motivated and wanting to learn more. So I think that's part of it anyway. All right. Well, a day late, but I got it done. Happy to have done this with you. There's always more to talk about. Do expect the rest of my notes for my talk with Catherine Austin-Fitz to be online for you probably in the next day or two. I'm going to get to that. Tracy and I, by the way, tomorrow we'll probably talk a little bit about a couple of other things. We'll probably talk a little bit about the upcoming conference. But our main theme is going to be, I think, we're talking about the Cape Girardeau UFO crash of 1941. Yeah. Got a lot of notes on it, and I'm looking forward to it. Again, we're following through on the theme of crash retrievals. I really like this idea a lot. So I think that'll be it. We'll probably chat a little bit about the Rio event, and we'll talk probably a little bit about the upcoming June 6th executive briefing. And I think then we'll just jump into Cape Girardeau, and hopefully we'll have something good to say about that. All right, everyone, hang in there. Stay strong, stay safe, stay sane. Don't let the bastards get you down. All right, until later, see ya.